It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
And welcome into another edition of Musso at the box. Another day, another portal edition and affection for LSU baseball. We will get into all of it. Massive get once again and fills a big position of need for LSU. We will get to that momentarily. And then as well, Kiley McDaniel over at ESPN, MLB draft analyst, released his mock draft 2.0 on Wednesday morning. It is a full 2-round mock and is littered with current LSU Tigers and LSU signees, future LSU Tigers as well. So we'll take a look at that here on today's show. Kind of prep you a little bit more for the draft. We'll have much more extensive draft coverage as we get closer to the actual event around All-Star Weekend in Major League Baseball next month in July. Smash the like button if you have not already. Get subscribed up on the YouTube channel. If you have not already, get subscribed on your favorite podcast app. If you have not already, of course, you can follow me on social media. Some of those handles are scrolling right there down below you. Glad to have you with me, and let's get right into it. So as I said, big addition for LSU in the portal and another subtraction, I guess you could say. Let's start with the addition because that is of greater importance. So when we looked at the roster outlook for 2025 way back a couple days after the season ended. So more towards the beginning of June. I think it was the second or third show we did after the season came to a close, after LSU lost to North Carolina. And in that, we looked at guys who were going to be draft risks, the draft eligible sophomores, portal candidates, and then portal needs. And when we looked at portal needs, there were two that really stood out. Number one, infield. And specifically corner infield, because you were losing Tommy White, and you were most likely going to lose Jared Jones. And if you've been paying attention to the MLB draft combine, Jared Jones is having himself a hell of a week. Power bats was the other thing that was right up there, and those two kind of went hand in hand. Sat there and we went through the numbers and told you then, this is how I phrased it. I said, y'all are going to look at me sideways when I tell you that I can make the argument that what LSU has to replace in the lineup heading into 2025, like what they have to replace from 24 going to 25, is a tougher deal than what they had to replace going from 23 to 24. Because when you went from 23 to 24 and that team was great, you still had Tommy White coming back. You had Jared Jones. You had Travinsky. You had, the glue guys like Milazzo and whatnot in there. You don't have any of that. Like, you don't have the 20 home run guy. You need power bats. Power has been a massive part of Jay Johnson's tenure at LSU. They've hit 114 homers in year one, 144 in year two, 114 again in year three. It's the greatest power display at LSU, like consecutive years wise. I can tell you this, it's the first time LSU's had 100 home runs in back-to-back seasons. This is actually 3 in a row since 08-09. And for 3 in a row, you have to go back to Gorilla Ball. Like, you have to go back to the late 90s, early 2000s for that. So you need to replace that. You need the power bats. Well, LSU took and then after Brady Neal jumped into the portal, we threw catcher really high up on the list too. Well, LSU took a big step when it comes to corner infield and power bats in the portal on Wednesday. The Tigers secured a commitment from Dayton transfer Eddie Yamin IV. We're going to get into him as a player, and then obviously, of course, where he fits in at LSU. I kind of want to start with him just as a player. So when you look at it on the surface, 2 years at Dayton, so that's another reason I love this. We've talked plenty about certain guys that have been brought in that are draft eligible and even considered draft risks for LSU in the transfer portal. Eddie Yamin is not that. Like, Eddie Yamin has been at Dayton for 2 years. He's going into his draft year. So he has a year. This guy's coming. That in and of itself is a positive. What you really, really love to see from a guy like Yamin is already development, already taking steps. And what I mean by that is, as a freshman, he played, in and out of the lineup with the Flyers. I can get you the exact, his exact numbers momentarily here. 38 games, started 27 of them. So wasn't an everyday player, but played plenty. Hit 178 that year, struck out in 50% of his at-bats. Had 5 homers, 19 RBI. Like, it was sparing. You go into his sophomore year, and you see a massive, massive jump from Yamin. Plays in 53 of the 55 games for Dayton. All 53 of those are starts. Went from a 178 average to 342, 5 homers to 13, 19 RBI to 54, from striking out in 50% of his bats to 30% of his at-bats. That's a major jump. When you just look at his performance in total, when it ranks on the team, Eddie Yamin led Dayton in batting average, doubles, home runs, RBI, and OPS. This kid's their best bat. He is their best bat. He was all second team, all A10. Like, he had a fantastic sophomore campaign off the freshman, and now you look for him to continue that jump in LSU's program. We talk all the time about things being, projectable from a lower level up to the SEC, and yes, that's a fair question to ask. Always, this guy seems really talented, and you've already seen him take that jump. He's massive, for one, 6'5", 205. Now, where is he going to play? And this is an interesting conversation as well, because when the commit popped, you saw a lot of people refer to him as a catcher, and that's not necessarily the case. In fact, I would go as far as to say that that's not going to be the case at LSU. And here's why. Eddie Yamin, when he came out of high school and went to Dayton, he was recruited as catcher. Okay? As a freshman in 2023, Yamin split time. What do we say? He played in how many games did we say? 38? 38 games, 27 starts. He split time at first base, right field, and DH. He caught twice, and it was both substitute roles. Went into the game late, and it was like the last 2 games of the season, too, by the way. He went in late in the game as a catcher. That's the only time he spent at catcher in his freshman year, after coming there as a catcher. Last season in 2024, all 53 of his starts were at first base. The guy has played twice at catcher at Dayton. Look, yes, he's recruited there. He's recruited as a catcher coming out of high school. He's actually pretty big for a catcher. 6'5's wild. I mean, we all think of Michael Papierski kind of being, I think with Pap was like 6'3", 6'4 or something. That worked out fine, but that's still fairly large for a catcher. But this is what I will say. You had that guy there, but they found a better role for him. And I don't mean this as a shot at Eddie Yamin at all. Like, love the pickup, think the kid's going to do great at LSU. But if they bring him in catcher, and even as a freshman, there's a couple guys in front of him, and then you find him fitting in a better spot as a sophomore, if he's not getting on the field catcher at Dayton, you're figuring out another spot for him. I don't think he's not going to come in here and be a day one guy at catcher. That's not what this is. He's going to play first base. And when you look at a guy like Luis Hernandez might be able to make a transition across the diamond to third easier. Although I will say the athleticism that you see from Yamin, him being able to play the corner outfield, speaks to the athleticism that he has, and maybe he could shift over to the other side. I mean, that's obviously a potential. But this feels like a replacement for Jared Jones, who is most likely going to sign in the draft. And we've talked about all the reasons why. He's hit 300 for 2 years at LSU. He's shown you the power, and he's continuing to show that now. He's played a great first base. Like, there's not really much more he can do, especially being penciled in as a right-handed first baseman. So Eddie Yamin feels like the replacement for Jones. It's where he's played, first base. The thing that's most important is the bat. And that's why we started there, aside from everything else. What LSU wants, what attracted LSU to Eddie Yamin is his bat. Specifically, obviously, like we said, the leap that he made year to year and the power numbers. The guy's got an OPS of over 1,000. That's really good. And that's what you need. So he checks 2 boxes for you. Power bat, corner infield. That's massive. And you know what? Look, if it doesn't work out with him at first base, the guy can DH or he can play a corner outfield, or maybe, yeah, he can catch. But this isn't Eddie Yamin coming into LSU to be the day one catcher. That's just not what this is. They're mainly after the bat, and they'll find a spot for him. That's what happens when you hit. Now, as it pertains to catcher, I will reiterate what I said the other day when we talked about Brady Neal entering the portal. If I'm LSU, I'm not waiting to see what happens in the draft. I'm going to get an experienced catcher just in case, because you don't know what's going to happen with Blaze Priester. Yeah, they feel good about him coming to school, but you just never know. Kate Aaron Beatty, the same thing. That guy is a $1 million player. Will he get that? I don't know. Maybe not. And if he doesn't, he'll come to school and you'll be great. But do you really want to risk that and just be left there hat in hand at the end? I say, no, you don't. And if I were LSU, I'd still be going out to get a catcher. While Eddie Yamin might not be that for LSU, he's a fantastic pickup that checks needs. And guess what? They're also not done there either. They need more power bats. You've gotten Hernandez and you've gotten Yamin. Both those guys with double-digit home runs. That's big getting them into the fold. But you need more because you're trying to replace White and Jones and Travinsky, all who had double-digit homers. Tommy White and Jared Jones themselves hit 52 of your 114 home runs. I'm sorry. Yeah, 52 of your 114 home runs. That's what you're still after to replace. Eddie Yamin's a huge step in that direction. Okay, so from your addition now to your defection. That is MJ Seo, pitcher. This is not going to be a very long conversation because there's just a lot of unknown. And I had somebody ask me the other day what I thought about MJ Seo going forward at LSU. And I told that person then, I said, it's hard to say because I never saw him pitch. None of us ever saw him pitch. All you have to go off of are the high school numbers and the conversations we had about him heading into this year. So MJ Seo, coming out of high school, was a two-way guy, shortstop and right-handed pitcher, number 160 overall player in the country, according to Perfect Game for the class of 2023. Gets to LSU, deals with an injury, ends up redshirting, like didn't pitch at all in the scrimmages, fall or spring, and is out for the year with the injury and ends up taking the red shirt. This is just, you kind of can read the tea leaves on this one and see what was going to happen. He's an undersized guy at 5'11". Yes, the velocity, very good on the mound, but what else was there in the development part of this for Seo at LSU? And when I say good velocity, mid-90s. He hit 96 a couple of times in high school. Didn't sit there, but touched it at 5'11". Like, that part's very impressive. But, again, reading the tea leaves, writing on the wall, looking at this, LSU sees a guy with that, and you have all these defections on the mound in general, and just guys flat out of eligibility, but you still go out and you get, Chandler Dorsey or Devin Sheeran, Luke Hayden, all these stud arms that you've brought in. If you're a guy like MJ Seo, you're looking at that saying, man, okay, so I just sat through that whole year, injured, redshirted, dealing with recovery. What's the path for me to the field here? And it's probably not great at a spot like LSU when you're dealing with all that. And, oh, yeah, they're bringing in this new crop of guys who throw 98 from the right side with a wipeout slider like Devin Sheeran to be in front of you. You might ask, well, what about the infield part of it? Well, same thing applies. Like, MJ Seo was not brought to LSU to play infield, and their actions show you that. This was Gavin Guidry. He was PO'd. He was going to be PO'd, pitcher only. LSU, when you have all these question marks on the infield right now, if you had that guy just sitting there and he was a legitimate option, he'd be a legitimate they'd act like he was a legitimate option. They didn't do that. So if he's not going to get on the field at shortstop, he's not going to get on the field on the mound, or I should say the path to contribute on the mound is not, as great as a guy who ranked as highly as he did out of high school would like, you enter the transfer portal. And that was just what it was going to be. It was going to be a hard path to the field at a place like LSU, and you're constantly fighting, for your spot. You look elsewhere, and that's what happened. And to be honest with you, with all that going in, even if he would have stayed, I don't think you would have seen a very big role for him in 2025. And for that reason, he leaves as well. So, MJ Seo out, Eddie Yamin in. 12 players in the portal, 13 players now in the portal for LSU, 7 committed out of the portal, 3 of them ranked in the top 20 according to Baseball America, all of them ranked inside of the top 250 according to our guys over at 64 Analytics. That's your transfer portal update. Let's talk some MLB draft before we step out of here for the day. Kiley McDaniel, ESPN draft analyst, released mock draft 2.0 on Wednesday morning. It was a full 2-round mock. Now, the thing to know with a full 2-round mock in Major League Baseball is it's not just 2 rounds. You also have the comp rounds and the competitive balance rounds all in there as well. This was a 75-pick mock draft from Kiley McDaniel. Let's start with the LSU players, the current guys on the team that were in this. Tommy White was a first-rounder at number 30, which is really interesting to think. I know a lot of us expected Tommy to go higher. It's just the way he's viewed from a scouting standpoint is not as a third baseman in Major League Baseball, which is very hard for me to believe. I know that's probably hard for a lot of you to believe. We saw him take such a jump at that position and play as consistently as you can at the highest level of college baseball that there is. And I think Tommy White will get a shot at third base, and I personally think he probably could stick. But, you'll see. First base is going to be his other option. The power is what it is. They are worried about the swing and the miss and the chase. That just is flat out what they're worried about with Tommy White at the next level. And he'd be kind of in that same realm with a Jared Jones in that regard where it's, right-handed first baseman, all those types of things. For what it's worth in his write-up, Kiley McDaniel did say that there are some teams in that 12 to 15 range that could take Tommy White. He would fit in there at a couple spots. But other than that, his range starts at 20 and kind of goes to about 35 is how Kiley McDaniel put it. So White projected 30th overall to the Rangers. Gage Jump was the next current Tiger off the board, number 62 overall. That is in the second round of the draft, a true second rounder, I should say, in the draft to the Atlanta Braves. That'd be a great spot for Gage Jump just from a development standpoint. The Braves have done tremendous in developing pitchers as of late. Ty Floyd was projected and mocked there in numerous drafts last season, and we talked about that then. But, you just look at the guys that the Braves have brought along, whether it be, Spencer Strider's obviously the best example there. They developed Kyle Wright into a very good pitcher as well, Max Fried. There's plenty. So that'd be a great spot if Gage Jump actually did end up there with the Braves at number 62, but that's a true second-round pick. He could go a little bit higher than that. You could see him kind of get into that competitive balance round A, the first one after the first round, which would be inside the top 50 picks or, right in there. But good spot for Jump. Luke Holman came off the board in McDaniel's mock at number 66. That's in the competitive balance round B, so the one that follows round 2, still technically round 2, went 66th overall to the Tampa Bay Rays. It'd be another really good landing spot. So, we'll wait and see if that actually is what plays out for Holman. He's kind of in that same thing with Jump. He couldn't move up, into a true second rounder into those, top 60 picks or so in the draft. Now, the signees, which everybody wants to hear about. It's the usual suspects. Like, it is the usual suspects that you've come to expect when we've talked about this. Connor Griffin off the board, number 10 overall to the Washington Nationals. Connor Griffin's not coming to LSU. Like, you never want to speak in absolutes with this, but it just gets more and more unlikely by the day. And you knew that going into it. The guy is the number one player in the country. You knew it was always going to be a long shot, and it will be. And I would put it at less than 1% that you get him to campus. Cam Caminetti, top prep pitcher in the draft. Like, that's the thing. Connor Griffin's the top prep position player in the draft. Cam Caminetti's the top prep pitcher in the draft. You have both of them committed. And in this mock, they went in back-to-back picks. Cam Caminetti, number 11 overall to the Detroit Tigers is what Kiley's projecting. Again, you're just not going to get that guy to campus. Virtually no chance at that. And you move on. Where it gets a little interesting is the next two. And you'll notice one name that we haven't mentioned is William Schmidt, the right-hander from Catholic High, up to 98, sits, 95, 96, a absolutely filthy, disgusting curveball. Number 36 overall to the Cleveland Guardians. That would have him in that competitive balance A. And Kiley McDaniel talked about, in his draft or whatnot, Schmidt, that there's rumors that signability could be tough, that there are strong ties to LSU, which that shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody, right? I mean, it's a Baton Rouge kid, has grown up around the program, would love to, he's one of the program guys, the Louisiana guys we talk about all the time, who would just have grew up bleeding purple and gold and wanting to wear the jersey and the name across their chest, not the name on the back, right? He's that type of guy. So that shouldn't come as a surprise. The part about that is, though, Kiley McDaniel imagines he will be a overslot sign. Like, where he's taken, even if it's not in the first round, he'll get plenty first round money and probably like middle of first round money, $3-4 million, which will be in line kind of with, potentially what he's asking, or maybe even more than what he's asking, and that he would sign if that's the case. But it's interesting that he did throw out the caveat of the rumors surrounding signability with a guy like William Schmidt. If you get William Schmidt to campus, and that's an if, and I'd probably still put it at a pretty big if, that is a day one guy for you in some capacity, most likely your rotation. But in some capacity, that's a day one guy for you immediately. But we'll see. Yes, there's the rumors. They make a lot of sense with everything that we've always talked about surrounding him. But then you have a guy in Kiley McDaniel who does this as well, if not better than anybody out there, saying, hey, he's probably going to be an overslot sign when the time does come. So that's one you sweat. The last guy to mention, Boston Bateman, massive left-handed pitcher out of California, I believe. That's probably shouldn't speculate on that, but I'm pretty sure he's actually out of California. 6'7" lefty, up to 97. Number 52 overall to the San Diego Padres. That is also in competitive balance round A. There is Boston Bateman. It would be huge if you could get him to campus, but again, a guy who's probably going to sign. But big fastball, big imposing frame from the left side. I guess the interesting thing there is, who comes off the board in front of him is something that Kiley McDaniel talked about, because there's a crop of left-handed pitchers at the prep ranks similar to him, and if guys just go before him, could you end up with some bad luck, I guess, maybe there, and he falls further and the money's just not quite right? Sure. I mean, I guess there's a chance that you get him there, but seeing him mocked, in the sandwich round of the first and second, that's a pretty strong indication that it's going to be really tough to get that guy to campus. And look, lefties that throw 97 don't show up to campus very often. It happened with Cam Johnson, but that didn't necessarily play out, and he's entered the transfer portal and off to, brighter things. But keep that in mind, of course, obviously, with a guy like Boston Bateman. So those were the 4 signees. And again, like I said, usual suspects. Interesting, no Cade Aaron Beatty there. That's a good sign if you're wanting to get him to campus. But those first 10 rounds are always the one to watch, because that's where you have the designated slot values for these guys. So that's your kind of an update there on the draft, some of the guys in the recruiting class, and things to watch, as well as your latest news in the transfer portal. Y'all smash the like button, get subscribed up on the YouTube channel, get subscribed up on your favorite podcast app if you have not done that already. Follow me on social media as well. Be here next time for more on Musso at the Box.